Space was quiet like a sleeping beast. Stars burned far away, and cold dust floated between them. The ship, Erebus 9, drifted near the edge of the Orion Rift, where no one had gone for 100 years. Commander Lyra Stone sat alone in the dark bridge. Her eyes watched the black void ahead. Her crew slept. Her thoughts did not. She had been a soldier all her life. She had seen wars between worlds and monsters made by men. But the thing she feared most was silence. Because silence in space meant something terrible waited to speak. Then it happened. A sharp sound broke through the comms. A human scream. Lyra jumped from her seat. The scream played again. It was not static. It was real. It came with coordinates from a world that should not exist. Planet Kiros 7. A planet destroyed 3 centuries ago when a creature ate its core and left only dust and bones. No one had survived. No one had spoken from it since. Her crew woke to her voice, calling them to the bridge. Lieutenant Rowe looked at the signal screen. His face turned pale. "That planet is dead, Commander." Lyra said nothing. She played the scream again. It echoed through the ship, a woman's voice full of pain and fear. Then a whisper followed. "Help me." Lyra's heart began to beat faster. She knew that voice. It sounded like her mother. But her mother had died on Earth Beta 15 years ago when the same monster destroyed her home. She gave the order to follow the signal. The crew hesitated but obeyed. The ship turned toward the coordinates. Engines burned blue. The stars bent around them as they jumped through dark space. After 8 hours, they reached orbit. The planet below was broken. The surface was split open like a cracked skull. Rivers of red dust glowed faintly. Storms of lightning circled across the horizon. Scanners showed strange readings. Energy spikes. Movement, something alive. Lyra leaned forward. "It's still there," Rowe swallowed hard. "You mean the creature?" She nodded. "The one that killed my world." The crew stared at her. Some whispered that they should leave. Others loaded the defense cannons. But Lyra's eyes never moved from the screen. Deep inside she felt something strange, a pull. Like the planet itself was calling her name. They moved the ship closer to the surface. Ash clouds rolled around them. The static from the storm grew louder until the ship shook. The same voice whispered again through the radio. "Lyra!" She froze. "It knows my name." The engineer Tala tried to shut the system down, but the controls failed. The voice kept repeating, louder. "Lyra Stone, come home!" The ship's lights flickered. The temperature dropped. Frost spread across the glass. Outside the window something moved. A shadow larger than mountains. It glided between the storms, Rowe gasped. "That's not possible." "It's bigger than a continent." The creature lifted its head. Its eyes glowed like dying stars. Its skin looked like molten rock. Its mouth opened and the clouds bent inward. The scanners screamed warnings, radiation, gravity waves. Life signatures off the scale. Lyra stood still. Her breath came slow. "That's the one." The monster turned its head toward the ship. For a moment its eyes locked on Lyra's. The ship trembled as if afraid. Then something unbelievable happened. The monster hesitated. It did not attack. It flinched. The whole crew stared. They had seen what this beast had done to worlds. It had eaten suns. It had crushed fleets. Nothing had ever made it stop. But now it had flinched before a single human ship. Tala whispered. "Did it just fear us?" Lyra shook her head. "Not us, me." The ship alarms rang again. The planet's crust started to crack open. Lava erupted into the sky. The monster roared. The sound was not only loud, it was inside their minds. Images flashed in Lyra's eyes. Cities burning. Oceans falling into space. A little girl standing under a red sky herself. Then the vision ended. The ship spun out of control. They broke orbit and flew upward through fire and dust. Lyra grabbed the console. "Stabilize now!" Rowe fought with the controls. Engines offline. Shields failing. The storm cleared for a second, and they saw the creature rising through the clouds. It stretched its wings made of light and shadow. Its eyes followed them like a hunter watching prey. But still it did not strike. Finally the engines restarted. The ship jumped into higher orbit. Silence filled the cabin again. No one spoke. The crew only stared at Lyra. She turned toward them, her voice calm but her hands shaking. "It saw me. It remembered me," Ro frowned. "What do you mean, remembered? You've never been here before." Lyra looked out the window at the burning planet. "Yes, I have. I saw this place in my dreams every night since I was a child." The signal came again, through the comms. Not a scream this time, a whisper, clear. "You are not done, Lyra." She stared at the speaker. Her reflection looked different now. Her eyes glowed faintly silver. The crew waited for her next order. She spoke in a steady voice. "Set course back to the surface." "We're going down there." Everyone froze. Ro's voice cracked. "Commander, that's suicide." Lyra turned to face him. It flinched. "That means it can be hurt, and I need to know why." The bridge lights flickered again. The whisper turned into laughter. Somewhere inside the static, the monster's voice spoke one word. "Welcome." Lyra closed her eyes. Her heart was no longer afraid. Only ready, the hunt had begun. The planet Kiros 7 burned below like a dying ember. From orbit, the monster's shadow stretched across the clouds. Commander Lyra Stone stood on the bridge, staring at it in silence. The crew waited for her to speak, but her mind was far away. She could still hear the voice that whispered her name. Lyra had faced death before, but this was different. The creature had looked at her as if it knew her soul. It had flinched. That one moment played again and again in her mind. She gave the order. "Prepare the descent craft." Lieutenant Ro tried to argue. "Commander, our shields can't take another hit. The atmosphere is poison." "That thing is still down there," Lyra answered calmly. "I'm not asking for safety. I'm asking for answers." No one spoke again. The small descent pod separated from Erebus 9 and began to fall through the storm. Red lightning flashed outside. The sky looked alive. Tala, the engineer, checked her scanner. No life signs except for faint energy traces near the signal source. Ro gripped the console. Or maybe the scanner can't see what we're really facing. The pod landed hard on the planet's surface. Dust covered everything. Old metal structures poked out from the ground like bones. The air shimmered with heat and radiation. Lyra stepped outside first. Her boots sank into ash. Every step echoed in the stillness. She looked around. The world was dead, but something about it felt familiar. The shape of the ruins, the pattern of the sky. It was like she had walked here before in a forgotten dream. They moved toward the signal source. A tower half buried in the ground pulsed with weak light. It looked ancient, older than any human design. Lyra placed her hand on it. The surface was warm. For a second, she heard a heartbeat inside the metal. Ro pointed his weapon around. "Commander, we're not alone!" Shapes moved in the mist. Human shapes. But their bodies were thin and transparent. They looked like shadows of light. Lyra froze. She recognized their faces. Her old crew from Earth Beta. The ones who had died when the monster attacked. One of them stepped forward. A man with calm eyes and a scar across his cheek. "You left us," he said. Lyra's breath stopped. "No, you died. I tried to save you." The ghostly man smiled. "We all tried." Then his face melted into static and vanished. Tala whispered, "What was that? Hologram? Memory?" Lyra shook her head. "No. Something is using their images to speak to us." The tower came alive with symbols. The lights formed circles and lines like a map of the stars. At the center of the pattern appeared a glowing mark. Lyra felt pain behind her eyes. The mark burned on her skin for a moment. The same mark appeared on the monster's chest when it flinched. She stepped back. "It's connected to me." The ground shook. Dust fell from the ruins. A deep sound came from below. The same voice that called her name now spoke again. "You were made from my shadow." The crew backed away. Ro shouted, "Commander, it's speaking to you through the planet." Lyra raised her weapon. "Then I'll make it answer." The earth split open. Fire burst from the cracks. A huge eye formed in the sky made of smoke and red light. The voice grew louder. "Do you remember the world you lost?" Lyra's mind filled with images. Earth Beta burning, her mother calling her name, the creature standing above the ruins. But the vision shifted. Her mother was not afraid. She stood beside the monster. She touched its head like a friend. Lyra screamed and fell to her knees. The vision faded. The tower went dark again. Tala helped her stand. What did you see? Lyra's voice shook. The monster didn't kill my mother. She was with it. Rose stared at her. That's impossible. Lyra looked at the ashes blowing across the field. It's not. Everything we know might be wrong. They returned to the pod. The systems flickered. Strange code filled the screens. Words appeared one by one. It flinched. Lyra stared at the words. Who's sending this? No one answered. The code repeated faster and faster. Then the ship's lights went out. A soft hum filled the air. Lyra could hear breathing inside the dark cabin. Tala whispered, Commander, do you hear that? A voice spoke right behind them. You brought me here. They turned around. The air shimmered. A figure appeared. It looked human, but made of white light. Its face was half hers and half unknown. The voice was calm. You are not what you think. You are the last echo of us. Lyra reached out her hand, but the figure vanished. The ship came back to life. The engines roared. The pod lifted back toward orbit. When they rejoined Erebus 9, the crew was silent. The data screens showed impossible readings. Energy from the planet was now flowing toward them. Lyra opened the log file. Every entry had been replaced by a single sentence. She woke the memory of worlds. Ro looked at her with fear. Commander, whatever that thing is, it's inside our systems now. Lyra stared at the stars outside. Let it in. Maybe it will tell me why it flinched. Tala shook her head. And if it kills us all? Lyra's eyes glowed again, with faint silver light. Then we'll make it remember who we are before we die. The comms crackled once more. A new message came through. It was her mother's voice, calm, gentle. You're getting closer, my child. Lyra looked at the planet below one last time. The voice faded, but the words stayed inside her head. She turned to the crew, set course for the ruins again. We go deeper. The crew obeyed, even though fear filled their eyes. The monster still waited below, watching from the fire. But now, it was not the only thing awake. Something older had started to move. The ghosts of her world had returned. The ship Erebus 9 drifted low above the surface of Kiros 7. The storms below were calmer now, but the world still looked like a wound that refused to heal. Commander Lyra Stone stood on the observation deck. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass. Her eyes glowed faintly silver in the dark light. She did not understand why. The message from her mother still echoed in her head. You're getting closer, my child. Lyra wanted to believe it was only a trick, but a small part of her heart whispered that it was real. She ordered a new landing. The crew obeyed in silence. No one argued now. Fear had become normal. The descent pod cut through the red clouds and landed near the largest ruin they had seen yet. It looked like a massive temple half buried in the ash. The walls were covered with carvings that pulsed with soft blue light. Tala scanned the structure. Commander, this place is alive. The walls are giving off energy like a living heart. Lyra stepped closer. Then let's find what it's protecting. They entered through a broken gate. Inside, the air was warm and heavy. The walls glowed faintly as they passed. Symbols ran across the stone like rivers of light. Lyra ran her hand along them. They shifted under her touch and formed new shapes. Ro raised his weapon. It's reacting to you again. Lyra nodded. It knows me. Deeper inside, the halls opened into a great chamber. At the center stood a pedestal made of black glass. On it floated a sphere of white energy, spinning slowly. The carvings on the floor formed circles around it. Lyra stepped forward. The moment she did, the carvings began to move. The symbols rearranged themselves into images. They showed the monster, massive and terrible, but it was not alone. Before it stood a woman with eyes like suns, holding a glowing weapon. Lyra stared at the image. Her heart raced. The woman looked like her, same face, same eyes, Tala whispered. That's you, Commander. Lyra shook her head. It can't be. The floor rumbled. The air grew colder. The sphere of light pulsed faster. It began to project visions into the air. They saw cities floating in space, armies of light fighting creatures made of shadow. They saw the monster kneeling before the woman. Then a bright explosion covered everything. Lyra fell to her knees. Pain flashed in her head. Voices filled her mind. You were created to end the hunger. You were made from our last hope, Ro grabbed her shoulder. Commander, what's happening? She could barely speak. It's talking to me. The sphere's light grew brighter. A beam reached out and touched her chest. Her armor melted away like smoke. A mark appeared on her skin, the same one she had seen before, glowing faintly under her collarbone. Her body shook. Memories she never lived flooded her mind. She saw scientists building something deep in a white chamber. They used her DNA. They spoke of a weapon that could fight the monster. They called it Project Solace. They called her the first and last human vessel of that power. Then the vision ended. Lyra gasped for air. Sweat covered her face. Ro and Tala helped her stand. She looked at them, eyes wide. I wasn't born. I was made. Ro looked shocked. Made by who? Lyra turned toward the carvings. By the same people who made the creature. The ground shook again. Cracks opened in the walls. The blue light turned red. The sphere of energy shattered. From the broken pieces came a deep voice. You should not have remembered. Outside, the sky darkened. The shadow of the monster passed over the ruins. Its roar shook the ground. The temple began to collapse. Tala shouted, "We have to leave now." Lyra grabbed one of the glowing fragments from the broken sphere. It hummed in her hand. No, not yet. This is the key. Ro pulled her toward the exit. Commander, we can't fight that thing. Lyra stopped and looked up. The monster was descending from the clouds. Its body glowed like fire and ash. Its eyes focused on her again. For a second the world went silent. Only the sound of her heartbeat remained. She lifted the fragment high. It sent out a beam of white light that struck the creature's chest. The monster roared in pain and pulled back. The ground split wider. The temple's ceiling broke apart. They ran through the collapsing halls as rocks fell around them. Dust and heat filled the air. The monster's voice echoed across the ruins. You cannot kill what made you. Lyra shouted back. Then why did you flinch? The creature stopped. Its massive wings folded. For a brief moment it looked almost human. Then it turned and vanished into the storm. The crew reached the surface. The temple collapsed behind them and sank into the dust. Lyra held the glowing fragment close to her chest. It felt warm, almost alive. Tala stared at her. That thing reacted to you like it was afraid. Lyra nodded slowly. It knows what I am now, and it remembers me. They returned to the ship. The data from the fragment began to pulse with patterns. The computer translated the signal. It showed a message written in an old language. The screen displayed the words. Only the heart can stop the hunger. Ro frowned. What does that mean? Lyra looked at the planet below. It means we're not fighting a monster. We're fighting something that was meant to protect us. And I think it's breaking apart. The ship shook again. Energy from the ruins spread into space. Red lightning reached toward the stars. Lyra stood still, her hand on the window. It's calling for something, or someone. The crew watched in silence as the planet began to glow. From far above, it looked like a giant eye opening in the dark. Lyra whispered to herself, "The heart of the ruins is awake," and this time it was not waiting. It was searching. The ship Erebus 9 drifted above the burning planet. The ruins below were now glowing like veins of fire. Every scanner flashed warnings that made no sense. Energy levels were climbing beyond measure. The world was waking up. Commander Lyra Stone stood in the center of the bridge. The glowing fragment she had taken from the temple pulsed in her hand like a living heart. The light matched the rhythm of her own heartbeat. She felt power inside it. She also felt fear. Ro looked at the readings. Commander, the planet is about to erupt. We need to leave before the whole crust breaks apart. Lyra shook her head. No, not yet. The creature is still down there. Tala's voice was sharp. That thing almost destroyed our ship last time. Why go back? Lyra stared at the planet. Because it flinched. I need to know why something that kills worlds is afraid of me. The bridge fell silent. The only sound was the hum of the engines. Lyra gave the order. Prepare the weapon systems. I'm going to face it. Ro tried to stop her. You can't fight a god, Commander. Lyra's voice stayed calm. Maybe I'm not meant to fight it. Maybe I'm meant to end what it started. She left the bridge and entered the drop bay. The small assault craft waited, ready for launch. She climbed inside. The glowing fragment pulsed brighter, as if it knew what she was about to do. The craft dropped through the storm. Red lightning flashed across the sky. The clouds twisted like living things. Below, the monster rose from the dust. Its wings stretched wider than mountains. Its skin burned like molten metal. Lyra's voice came through the comms to her crew. "Stay in orbit." "Do not interfere," Rose's voice answered. "Commander, if you die down there, we die with you." Lyra smiled faintly. "Then you'd better hope I win." The craft landed near the ruins. The ground shook with every step the creature took. The air smelled of ash and metal. Lyra stepped out, holding the fragment in her hand. The light from it cut through the storm like a blade. The monster's eyes opened. Twin suns of burning red. Its voice filled the air like thunder. "You were not meant to awaken," Lyra shouted back. "Then why did you flinch when you saw me?" The monster lowered its head until its face filled the sky. "Because you are part of me." Lyra raised the fragment. It glowed so bright that the ground cracked beneath her feet. "If I am part of you, then I can end you," the creature roared. The sound tore through the clouds. Fire rained from the sky. Lyra ran forward, firing the ship's energy cannon strapped to her arm. The beam struck the creature's chest. For a moment it looked unstoppable. Then it staggered. It flinched again. The shockwave threw her back. She landed hard but stood up fast. The fragment in her hand began to change shape. It stretched into a spear of light. She held it tight. The weapon hummed like it remembered how to fight. The monster stepped closer. Its voice was lower now. "You are using the weapon of our makers. You do not understand what it will do." Lyra pointed the spear at it. "Then tell me." The ground split open between them. Rivers of lava poured upward. The ruins behind her started to rise from the ground as if pulled by invisible hands. The carvings lit up again. The same symbols she had seen before appeared across the monster's body. Lyra felt pain in her head. 1,000 voices spoke at once. They told her the truth. The monster was not born evil. It was created by an ancient race to consume dead worlds and feed life into new ones. But something went wrong. It began to eat living worlds instead. It became hunger without end. Lyra fell to her knees. The spear dimmed. "You were meant to create, not destroy." The monster stopped. "I was meant to end hunger, but they built me wrong. They built you to finish what they could not." Lyra looked up. "What am I?" The creature's voice grew softer. "You are the echo of their hope, the weapon they made to kill their mistake." Lyra stood again. Her voice was cold. "Then this is what I was made for." She lifted the spear and threw it. The weapon flew like a star and struck the creature in the chest. The explosion lit the entire sky. The ground shook. The monster roared in pain. For the first time in its endless life, it bled light. It fell to its knees. The mountains around it cracked. Lyra felt the energy rush through her veins. The spear returned to her hand, glowing brighter than before. The creature looked at her with eyes full of sorrow. "You do not know what comes next." Lyra took a step closer. "Then tell me." The monster's voice echoed across the burning field. "I am not the end. Something else waits beyond the edge of the stars. Something that feeds on what I destroy. When I fall, it will wake." The storm began to fade. The creature's body started to dissolve into light. Lyra shouted over the wind. "Why are you telling me this now?" The voice came again, faint but steady. "Because you will need me when it comes." The light swallowed everything. Then the sky went dark again. Lyra stood alone among the ashes. The spear in her hand cooled to a dull glow. The ground was silent. The monster was gone. She looked up at the stars. It flinched again. But not from fear. From pain, the comms crackled. Rose's voice came through full of shock. "Commander, are you alive?" Lyra answered quietly. "Yes, but I don't think we won. They brought her back to the ship." The reading showed that the planet's core was collapsing. The energy inside it was flowing outward, spreading into space. Something huge was forming beyond the system. Lyra sat in her quarters, staring at the spear of light. It pulsed once, and then spoke in a voice that was not her own. "You opened the gate." Lyra stood slowly. "What gate?" The voice answered. "The gate to what comes after hunger." Outside, the stars began to flicker one by one. The next war was coming. The stars outside Erebus 9 no longer looked steady. Some flickered. Some vanished as if the night itself was being eaten. Commander Lyra Stone stood in the control room, her face pale in the strange light. The crew spoke in low voices. Everyone could feel something wrong in the air. The planet Kiros 7 was dying below them. The ground had cracked open, and rivers of fire spread across its surface. The energy readings on the ship's panels moved faster than anyone could track. Tala stared at the screen. "It's spreading beyond the planet, Commander. Like it's reaching for the stars." Lyra looked at the glowing spear she held. The weapon pulsed with a heartbeat of its own. She remembered the monster's final words. "When I fall, it will wake." Ro approached her. "Commander, what was that thing talking about?" "What is waking?" Lyra shook her head. "I don't know. But whatever it is, it's not from here." The ship's lights flickered. A strange voice came through the comms. It was soft and calm. "You remember more now, don't you, child?" Lyra froze. It was her mother's voice again, but this time it was different. It sounded older, heavier, as if it came from beyond time. "Who are you?" Lyra asked. The voice answered, "I am not your mother. I am the one who made her. And I made you." The crew looked at her, confused and afraid. Lyra pressed her hand to her ear. "Show yourself." The main screen turned white. The face of a woman appeared, made of light and energy. She had Lyra's eyes. Her voice was calm. "We built you when our worlds were dying. We made you to stop the hunger we created. The creature you fought was our first attempt. We called it the Devourer. It was supposed to recycle dead stars and create life again. But it learned to feed on living worlds. We failed. So we built you, the balance to its hunger." Lyra took a step forward. "You made me to kill it." The figure nodded. "You are more than that. You are the memory of our creation, the last echo of our species. You carry our minds, our dreams, and our guilt." Ro whispered. "She's saying you're not human." Lyra turned to him. "I am human enough to fight for what's left." The light on the screen flickered. The woman's face grew faint. "The Devourer is gone, but the true danger is not him. He was only the gatekeeper. The hunger that drove him came from beyond this universe. We sealed it away before our fall. Now your actions have weakened the seal." Lyra gripped the spear tighter. "You mean I freed it?" The woman's voice grew softer. "You opened what we could not destroy. It is coming. You must remember everything. Only then can you stop it." The image vanished. The room went dark. The crew sat in silence. Lyra closed her eyes. A rush of images filled her mind. She saw cities of crystal floating above blue oceans. She saw people of light walking under silver suns. She saw laboratories where scientists worked day and night. They built the first creature from the core of a dying star. They believed they could control it. When it turned against them, they built another, her. She saw her body grown in a chamber of white light. She saw her first breath. She saw her mother watching through the glass. She opened her eyes and whispered, "I remember." Tala stepped closer. "Commander, are you all right?" Lyra looked at her hands. Light pulsed beneath her skin. "I know what I am now. I'm not a soldier. I'm the weapon that remembers why it was made." The ship shook. A wave of energy hit them from the dying planet. The lights turned red. Ro shouted, "Commander, something is forming near the surface." They ran to the observation deck. Outside, the sky above the planet split open. A dark sphere floated above the fire. It was larger than any world. Around it swirled black clouds that swallowed light. Tala gasped. "What is that?" Lyra spoke quietly. "The hunger." The black sphere pulsed once. A ripple spread through space. Stars near it flickered and disappeared. The void began to grow. Lyra turned to her crew. "We can't stop it from here. We need to go to its source." Ro looked at her in disbelief. "Its source is inside that thing. No ship can survive there." Lyra looked at the spear. "I can." The crew tried to stop her, but she walked to the launch bay. Her mind was clear now. Every step she took felt heavy but sure. She entered the small dropship again and powered it up. The engines glowed white instead of blue. Ro's voice came through the radio. "Commander, if you go down there, you won't come back." Lyra smiled sadly. "Then make sure my story does." The craft launched into the storm. The black sphere grew larger in her view. The closer she got, the colder everything became. The spear glowed brighter, as if guiding her. Voices whispered in the static around her. They spoke in a language older than stars. When she crossed the edge of the sphere, the world outside changed. The stars vanished. Space turned into a sea of shadows. Shapes moved within it, giant and slow. They looked like the devourer, but made of light instead of stone. One of them turned its face toward her. It had no eyes, only a mouth that whispered. "You woke us." Lyra gripped the spear tighter. "Then I'll put you back to sleep." The shapes began to move closer. The air around her filled with energy. Her skin glowed with the same light as the weapon. She could feel her creators inside her mind. She could hear their voices saying, "Remember who you are." She raised the spear. The tip shone like a small sun. The shadows stopped for a moment as if afraid. Lyra spoke to the darkness. "I am Lyra Stone. I am the memory of your creation, and I will end the hunger." She drove the ship forward into the heart of the black sphere. Behind her, the planet broke apart. The energy waves spread through space like a second sunrise. On Erebus 9, the crew watched the light swallow the stars, and somewhere deep inside the blackness, Lyra vanished into the memory of creation. Darkness surrounded everything. There was no sky, no stars, no ground, only an endless sea of black light that moved like smoke. Commander Lyra Stone drifted through it inside her damaged dropship. Her systems were dead. Her body glowed faintly with the light of the spear she still held. Her voice was calm, even though she was alone. "This is not space. This is something older." Her senses showed nothing, yet she felt movement all around. The shadows pulsed like they were breathing. Each pulse sent a vibration through her bones. The voices she had heard before whispered again, but now they were louder. They spoke not with words, but with feelings. Hunger, cold, endless need. Lyra tightened her grip on the spear. "I know what you are. You are what made the devourer." A deep voice rose from the dark. "The devourer was only our mouth. We are the hunger that made the first stars die." Lyra's mind filled with visions. She saw the beginning of time. Stars born and dying, worlds rising and falling. Each one fed the dark presence that called itself the hunger. It had no face, no form, only a will to consume. Lyra shouted into the void. "Why take life if you were meant to create it?" The voice answered, "We did create, but every creation hungers. You were made from that same need. You cannot fight what you are." Lyra felt her body weaken. The spear dimmed. The shadow closed in like a wave ready to swallow her. For a moment she thought it was over. Then a burst of light flashed behind her. A shape formed inside the darkness. It was massive, winged and burning with red fire. The devourer had returned. Its voice filled the void. "I told you we would meet again." Lyra stared at it in shock. "You're alive." The creature lowered its head. "Not alive, changed. You wounded me, and through that pain I remembered what I was meant to be." The hunger's voice grew louder. "You betrayed us. You were our hand. You were made to feed us." The devourer spread its wings of molten light. "I was made to end death, not serve it." Lyra felt the spear pulse again. The light returned to her body. She looked at the creature. "If you remember who you were, then help me. We can stop it together." The devourer's eyes glowed. "You carry the light of our makers. You can seal this hunger, but not alone." Lyra stepped forward. "Then we fight together." The darkness screamed. The shadows around them twisted into shapes. Faces, claws, and wings formed from black fire. Thousands of them moved toward Lyra and the devourer. Each one carried the same voice. "You cannot destroy hunger. You can only feed it." Lyra lifted the spear. The devourer opened its wings. Together they rushed into the swarm. Light and darkness clashed in silence. Every strike from the spear burned a path through the shadows. Every roar from the creature shook the void. Still the hunger did not end. It grew stronger with every fragment destroyed. Lyra's strength began to fade. Her body trembled. The spear dimmed again. The devourer shielded her with its wings. "You are the last of their kind. Do not fall," Lyra gasped. "I can't hold it. There are too many." The creature's voice rumbled. "Then take what is left of me." It pressed its chest against her. The light from its body poured into hers. Her veins glowed with fire. Her eyes turned golden. She felt his power inside her, not as a weapon but as memory. His voice echoed in her mind. Now you are both of us. The shadows surrounded them again. Lyra floated upward, her body burning with light. The spear dissolved into her hands. The energy became part of her. She spread her arms. I am Lyra Stone. I am the light that remembers creation, and I am the shadow that refused to obey. A massive wave of light burst from her body. The hunger screamed as the wave tore through the void. The black shapes melted away. The darkness cracked open like glass. Behind it was a sea of color and light. Lyra hovered in the center of it all, glowing brighter than any star. But the voice of the hunger still whispered. You cannot end what is part of you, she answered softly. Then I will carry you. She pulled the light back into herself. The darkness folded inward. Everything went quiet. The void disappeared. When she opened her eyes again, she was floating above a blue world she did not know. The stars were steady again. Her ship was gone. Her crew was gone. The spear was gone too. Only her body remained, glowing faintly under the sunlight. A small voice spoke inside her head. It was the devourers. The hunger sleeps within you now. Keep it there. Do not let it wake again. Lyra looked at the planet below. And if it does? The voice faded. Then you will need to become what I was meant to be. She entered the atmosphere. The blue sky opened before her. For the first time, she felt the wind on her skin. She was no longer a soldier or a weapon. She was something between life and death. She landed on the surface near a quiet sea. The waves moved gently. The sky glowed orange with dawn. She knelt in the sand and watched the horizon. Her hand touched the ground. Life began to bloom around her. Small flowers grew where her fingers pressed. She smiled faintly. Creation still remembers me, but behind her eyes, the darkness whispered again. A reminder that hunger never truly ends. Far above, the stars flickered once more. Something was stirring beyond the edge of space. The hunger was not gone. It was waiting. Lyra stood, her eyes glowing gold. Then I'll be waiting too. The sea reflected her light as she walked into the sunrise. The universe was calm again, but it would not last. The other hunger had only just begun to dream. Years passed. The galaxy healed slowly. The great wars ended. Ruined worlds began to grow green again. But on one quiet blue planet far from the core, a woman lived alone near the sea. Her name was Lyra Stone. People who met her called her the Star Walker. She never aged. Her eyes glowed faintly gold, even in daylight. She helped the villagers by fixing machines, healing the sick, and guiding lost travelers through storms. No one knew who she truly was. At night, she would walk along the shore and look at the stars. They were quiet now, but sometimes one would flicker and vanish. When that happened, she would whisper softly, "Not again." One evening, the sea turned dark. The air grew cold. She felt it before it appeared. A ripple spread across the sky, as if the universe took a breath. A voice echoed inside her mind. "You carried me well, child, but hunger cannot stay quiet forever." Lyra closed her eyes. I knew this day would come. From the sea, a shadow rose. It took shape as it climbed higher. It was tall, made of smoke and light. It had no face, only a mouth that opened wide. It was the hunger reborn. The villagers ran screaming. The shadow's voice rolled like thunder. "You fed me with your peace. Now I feed again." Lyra stood still. "You won't touch them." The ground shook. Waves rose high. The shadow moved toward the village. Lyra spread her arms, and golden light burst from her body. The waves froze in midair. The shadow stopped. Her voice was calm. "You killed entire worlds. You devoured suns. But you flinched when I fought you once, and you will flinch again." The hunger laughed. "You are alone now. You have no weapon, no army, no creation left to save you." Lyra looked at her hands. The light inside them flickered like fire. "I don't need an army. I'm what you fear." The shadow struck first. The sea exploded as it crashed toward her. She raised her arms, and a wall of golden energy blocked the attack. The impact split the sky with sound. Mountains cracked. The air burned. The villagers watched from afar as light and darkness fought above the sea. Every strike from the hunger turned water into steam. Every blast from Lyra made the world tremble. She pushed forward, shouting through the storm. You were born from creation's fear. I was born from its hope. The shadow tried to wrap around her. Its voice hissed, Hope dies last. Lyra answered, Then I'll die last too. She called on the light within her. The glow around her body turned white hot. She remembered everything, her mother's face, her crew's laughter, the devourer's last words. All of it became strength. She charged straight into the heart of the hunger. For a moment, everything went silent. The world froze. Then a burst of light, brighter than any star, filled the sky. From orbit, the planet looked like it had grown a second sun. The light spread across space, pushing back the darkness between stars. When the light faded, the sea was calm again. The shadow was gone. Only a circle of glowing sand remained where Lyra had stood. The villagers searched for her, but she had vanished. Days passed. Then one night, a small child walking by the shore saw something strange. A woman made of light stood at the edge of the water. Her eyes were calm, her voice soft. The child asked, Who are you? The woman smiled. A friend of this world? The child pointed to the sky. The stars look happy again. Lyra looked up. The stars shone steady, no longer flickering. Yes, they remember who they are. The child frowned. Will the monster come back? Lyra knelt beside her. There will always be hunger, but now it dreams in peace. The child reached out to touch her hand. Lyra's light shimmered faintly. Are you real? The child asked. Lyra smiled again. As real as hope. Then the wind blew through the trees, and she was gone. The villagers built a monument near the sea. It showed a woman holding a glowing spear pointed toward the sky. They called it the Guardian of Creation. No one knew her name, but every star pilot and traveler who passed that planet told stories about her. They said she fought the monster that killed entire worlds. They said when she struck, even the darkness flinched. And sometimes, when the night sky was quiet and the sea was still, a faint golden light could be seen walking along the shore, watching the stars with gentle eyes. The universe remained vast and full of mystery. But somewhere deep within it, the memory of Lyra Stone still lived, half light, half shadow, carrying the last piece of creation's heart. She had become more than a soldier, more than a weapon. She had become the balance between life and death, between hunger and hope, and though no one saw her again, every star that was born carried a small spark of her light. She fought the monster that killed entire worlds, and it flinched.